Hi, in this video we're going to discuss the recommended steps for creating a guide. Um, as you can see, we're using the web version. You could also do this from the mobile version, but because the web version has more space, it is easier to create on this version. Notice that the user icon is green, which means I'm logged in, which you have to be in order to store any data. And with that, let's go to the help, which has the steps, so we can then refer to them later. So here's creating a new guide. So the first step, you have an option. You can either copy an existing guide or create a new guide. So copying is, for example, if you want to take an existing guide and improve it, and therefore you want to retain the content that's already there, then you can make a copy. If it's totally different than the guide you already have, then you might as well just create a new guide. So let's do that, and we're gonna go to guide and new guide. Now it's gonna warn us that doing this we will lose any data that we haven't saved. We haven't saved anything. Well, we haven't written anything. All right, so now we have a new guide. You notice it's pretty blank. It has no places, not much information. So let's go back to our list. Let's see, there it is. Okay, so we did step one. So now some of these steps I'm only going to show how to do them for the interest of time, so that the video is not too long. There's other videos that go into more detail, but this is basically a strategy for what are the things you should do and in what order, and in order to make it more efficient. All right, so the next thing you should do is to edit the guide info. Actually, it's called guide properties here. And the important things here, obviously, the name, so that you remember what it is. An image, because it's always nice to have an image. Description is nice, but for the time being, let's concentrate on things that are essential, like the language, the countries, and the cities. And that's because that's how searches are made if you want to share your guide, or if you want to search. Let's say you have a lot of guides and you want to search them. All right, so I'm not going to change that. Now the next few steps are for planning purposes, and again, you want to collect all the data so that in order to make it more efficient, you don't want to go into the same dialogues multiple times to change different attributes. So if you collect all the data, you minimize the work. Now for those that are experts, you may already have the list of places, but for most amateurs, you can look on the internet, places like Bing Travel, and you create a list of what are the best places to see in Florence, for example. Just type in what to do in Florence, what to see in Florence, things like that. From that list, you should also get a rough idea of the must-see places, and this is helpful for the guide users, so that if they have little time, then they can concentrate on those places. Now from those places, you should categorize them into groups and categories. Groups are things like neighborhoods, for example, and then categories are things like types of restaurants. So for example, once you categorize them with the groups and categories, you can then search for all the fish restaurants that are in this specific neighborhood. Without that information, then you can't do those searches. All right, now we're step G here, add delete group. So again, we want to tag each place with a category or a group, or both. So here the guide already has some predefined groups. So if you're lucky, the groups that you need are already here. But obviously we can't have all possible groups. But you can add your own. You can add a group, give it a name that you prefer, and then you can select from a specific, let's do that, we'll name it like that so it shows up, and then you can select from a, you can select an icon. So let's say it's an architecture. All right, now you can also select specific custom icons, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're not going to save this. So if you want custom, you can do custom map markers. This one doesn't have any, starts with 0. And again, you do the same thing, but in this case, you have to provide a URL. So I want to show you that. Same thing with categories. All right, so here you have, for example, a bunch of restaurants, seafood, pizza, but the one you want may not be here, so you can create your own. All right, the list here, where are we? Okay, so now we're finally, so that all those steps were pre-planning. Now we're ready to add locations, paths, and areas. So location you can add by, let me zoom in first. All right, there's different ways you can add. This one, the simplest way is, I don't know if it's the simplest, but one way is just by you select the location marker, and then you click on the map. That's one way, and make sure you don't forget to click back here, so otherwise every time you click you'll create one. Another way is to search. You can search for attractions or Google search with text. Now these are the two that will give you direct places in the application. These other ones are you have to do some cut and paste because there's not as tight of an integration with these other ones. Let's see, you can search, you can click, you can also click on places of interest and then just add them that way. And okay, that's so now then you can also add paths. So to add a path is you just click, and then at the end you double click and show the arrows, show you the direction. This is the starting point, the ending point. Again, make sure you remember. And then you select areas. So for example, now an area, you should go back to the beginning and double click, and that's the area. Now we made it a little bit thicker so that when you need to select it, it's a little easier. All right, so those are the three types of places: location, path, and area. All right, so we did that. Now we're all right. So now you see these places here. They don't have categories or groups. So a couple of ways to do that. You could click on that, and let's take a moment to look. You can also, so visited is, so when you create the guide, obviously it's not visited, but when you use this app as a journal, then you can click visited if you've already visited. You can click favorite if one of the places you like. But as a guide, you can tell the prospective guide users, hey, this is a must-see place, so you click on that. Now hidden is, in order to reduce clutter because when you create a guide, you could have literally hundreds of places. Some of them are secondary, they might not be as important, and you can hide those using this feature, but you can still refer to it if you want to bring up that information. So that's what hidden, well, once you click hidden, it won't show up here unless you unhide it. So it's okay, so here is where you can select the groups. So here obviously you've already added your group, which is why we did it before, and same thing with category. And then here's some info, and this is HTML, so you entered some info. You can put pictures in there and whatever. You can give it a rating. All right. Okay, now the other trick that is available, if let me put a place in here first. Okay. So the other trick you can use is there's a feature of the area. Okay, here. filter places inside area. When you click on that, you see it filters, and then what you can do is you can apply attributes like groups and categories only to those places. So this is handy when, well, I mean, when you have one or two, it's not a big time saving. But let's say you added a whole bunch of places, and now you want to select the ones that are in a specific area, and then set all of those to a specific group or category. This makes it easier. Then you click on that, and it shows everything again. All right, so let's see. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, again, you go back and you look for it. One of the nice features is a schedule. I know that when I go on a trip, I like to be I like to know what I'm going to be doing, as opposed to just winging it. So it's nice to have a rough schedule at least. You can be you can be flexible and skip things or change things around, but it's nice to have some structure so you know how much time you have to see the must-see places at least. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add events. So we're going to click on here, and we're going to add then we set the date and time, and again we can add information, and you can also add a place. All right. Now you can have more than one schedule. Right now there's only one. Let's see, yeah, there's only one, so you can't really choose. But you can add, you can add a schedule from here. You can add a schedule, and then you can put events in different schedules, and then you can select. So you could have, for example, some what-if schedules. You could say, oh, we could do this, or we could do that if it rains on one day. Or when you're planning, you could have different schedules. Let's see, okay. All right, so now another feature is something called chapters and sections. Now, think of that as just HTML. Now, when you're using this as either a guide or a journal, you want some text and some information that ties all this other content together. And the place you can put that is right here. So now we're going to so it goes here, and so the okay, so the chapters and sections, let me just look at that here. There's nothing right now, but think of sections as HTML content that you can link to, so that, for example, when you have your main HTML content here, in order not to make it long meaning this way long, you can make it brief and have links to other pages that are HTML. And let's see. Okay, so then of course you create the HTML content, and then the last step, again, is only if you want, it's optional, is you can decide what kind of access you want other people to have, if any at all. And then make sure, important, to click save periodically, because it only saves, it's only a local copy you see here, and it doesn't save it until you click save. So that pretty much is an introduction into how to create a guide.